Now we will be mastering the RBQs and questions expected. So first of all, let's get into what is meant by the RBQ. Let's get into the introduction. So by RBQs, I mean that the reasons behind the questions. So when we are in an interview, there are certain questions that the interviewer is asking, and we have to make sure we know the reasons what they have in their mind for that specific question, so that you would be in a position to actually answer those exactly to the point, and that would make your interview a bit impactful. So first of all, before going into the basic questions, we have to understand our strengths and weaknesses. So first of all, what we have to do in terms of our strengths and weaknesses. For me personally, I don't believe in the concept of as such weaknesses, but what I call them as is that the points of improvement. So there are your strengths, and there are certain points in which you can actually get yourself improved. So these are the two concepts that I actually follow, because the word of weakness in itself is a bit strong and it actually gives a negative impression on your personality. So let's move on towards the strengths or the improvements that you might be needing, right? So for when it comes to your strengths, you have to make sure you have practiced at least 4 to 5 strengths in advance. Either they can be in terms of your communication skills, your leadership skills, or any other strength that you feel that are applicable. And you have to make sure they are actually, in terms of they're relevant in terms of the job description or that specific job, right? Because in the from the start, when you're making a CV, you might have noticed that by then you would have already understood the job description and the overall organization culture as well. When it comes to the overall, what we call as the usually the weakness, you have to make sure you have 3 to 4 of them at least. It is a bit hard to actually look up to the weakness, but you have to make sure you have 3 to 4 different parts in here, because in most of the scenarios they actually ask you for 2 or 3, or in some cases they actually ask you for 1. And okay, how we are supposed to actually talk about our strengths or weaknesses when they are going to ask you? For example, they ask you, tell me about your strength. So you would be talking about a leadership skills, or you have a team building skill, or you are a good communicator. At that point, you would be actually talking about a specific story that you would be having in your mind, that you actually were in a certain scenario or situation where you depicted that skill set, and then it gave an outcome. So you have always have to make sure that those strengths have a story on their back, right? And that is outcome related, and you have actually shown that or practiced that skill set in the past. On the other hand, when you are going to talk about that improvement that you might be needing or the weakness, you have to make sure, for example, you are going to talk about a specific weakness, that is that I procrastinate a bit, right? Or you say that I am a perfectionist. So that kind could be a kind of a weakness, but on the other hand, it could also be used as an strength, right? So you would be saying that I'm a perfectionist, that actually sometimes makes me pass the timelines, so or the deadlines, but I am actually working on that. And from the past, I have actually started to start my work ahead of time in order to actually meet those deadlines. So this is a basic example that I gave you. So you always, when you're going to talk about your weakness, you have to make sure that there is a story, in connection with that weakness, and how you're actually involved in current improvement of that weakness. So another thing when you're going to talk about your weakness is that you have to make sure it is not actually, for example, like you're going for a specific job of a software or for the financial market, right? You're going for a banking job, and then you say my weakness is I'm bad with numbers. So it is, the core skill that you are needed, that is needed in that specific job. So you have to make sure you don't actually use that kind of weaknesses here, but that weaknesses that might not be directly influencing your overall performance, but indirectly. So you have to prepare these 3 to 4 with certain examples. So now, in order to understand the overall questions that are expected and what are the reasons behind those specific questions, there are basic 5 questions that are commonly asked, and if we master these 5 questions, you would be in a position to actually answer any of the question that is going to be asked there, and you would be in a position to actually understand the reasons behind every question, right? So first question is, tell me about yourself. And second one is, why do you want to work here, or why should we hire you? Third one is, tell me about a time when you were in a specific scenario or a situation. They're going to ask you about your past or a certain skill set you had depicted. Then what is your greatest weakness or the strength that we have already discussed. And then where do you see yourself in 5 years, so or 5 years, 10 years, or 2 years, right? So let's move on to our first question. The first question is, tell me about yourself. So the reason which is behind this is that the recruiter is actually about or trying to look that he wants to know that if you are going to be a value adding hire for them. So they are actually looking for this, that either you're going to add value to their business or not. So your answer strategy should be, you should start with a feel good short statement about your professional and academic background, and it should be short and crisp. Not you're going to talk about everything on your past, but you have to make sure when you would you knowing the job description, you would be knowing that what the culture or the organization is actually looking up to from you. Then you would be actually using those specific professional academic background statements in regard of that specific job that you're going to apply, and that would be short and crisp. And then you'll be highlighting your experiences from the past to present that your values and skills and characteristics in the past that you have added value. And then you'll be summarizing with a concluding statement that relates to how your skill set is the perfect, again, fit to the job. So for example, if you have gone for a job in the banking sector, you'll be talking about that how you actually added the inquiries there, or how you handle the online financial softwares or something like that. And then you would be talking about your past experiences, your actual knowledge, and then how you added value at that firm and how it is expected to be added in this firm. So this is the overall story that you're going to talk about when they're going to ask you this specific question. Let's move on to our next question. The next question is, why do you want to work here, or why should we hire you? So this is another very common question. So here what are they looking for? That how much you know about their company, and you have to show capability, and you have to let them know that why you're different from others. Okay, here this is the most important point. When we were making our CVs and resumes as well, we also did our prior research on that company. So first of all, the very important thing before going again into the interview, you have to make sure you have the basic knowledge of that organization, that what it does, what is its overall mission and vision, and what are their recent current projects, and what is the project or what is the aspect that you would be working if you get hired in the future. So you would be knowing about that organization in advance. Then you should know your values, give specific personal reasons why the organization good fit for you, in line to the organization. Once again, you have to actually look at the organization culture or the organization practices that are being performed there, or the specific jobs that are there at that organization that you are actually looking up to, and everything should be in line towards that specific organization and their job description. Third thing is, you have to differentiate from yourself from the competition, who will be asked the same question. Be honest, be yourself. So show individuality and some personality. Here one thing comes again is that when you're going to talk about your competition, in my specific interviews where I've taken, the people start saying that I am the best candidate, and no one is like me or something like that. You don't have to portray the other candidates negative. That is going to give a very negative impact on that specific interviewer or recruiter. So you have to make sure you talk about their competition as well, that there are also, everyone has their certain capacities, everyone has their capabilities. But what I feel is that in me is that I have specific leadership skills, or the financial skills, or what experiences I have in the past that can start adding value to the company, or your company, or the corporation, or they would be adding some positive energy in here. So this is how you're going to actually talk positive about everyone else as well, and you would be talking about how you can add value to the specific organization. And it would be possible when you had already done your prior research. The last thing is that you would be convinced the employer you are the best candidate by concisely highlighting your relevant skills and personality characteristics as they relate to the job. So once again, you have to make sure everything is relevant to the specific job. The third question is, tell me about a time when you were in a certain situation, or they were talking to you about your past experience or in a project that you have worked. So here they are actually looking up to that. They are looking at how you performed in a specific environment in the past. So they might be asking you that what was there was a tense situation in the past, how you actually handled that. So they're actually looking at how, if they could know about your past, they could actually figure out about your future behaviors as well. So here, this is a very specific approach that you can use, that is STAR. In this approach, you're first of all going to talk about a situation, and then the task you were given, what were the actions you actually did there, and what were the result outcome that you actually had. For example, they ask you for a situation where you depicted leadership role. You'll be saying there was a recent new project where they had a team of 10 people and we have to complete a specific task, and I had to lead them before in 10 days. We had to complete a project in 10 days. So that was the task you got. There was situation there, you got the task. The actions you did, that you actually distributed responsibility in the team members, and then as a result you actually got that you completed that project before time, or there was you got positive results, right? So this was a bit story that you actually had here, and this actually shows that you depicted your leadership skills successfully. So you have to make sure whatever situation they're going to give you, so you have to be prepared beforehand about that specific job and about specific situations and scenarios you might be in the past. And then you'll be sharing your story clearly with examples, and these are the tasks that you're going to actually talk about in detail. The situation, describe the market industry challenge that you were faced, task, detail of your strategy, that how you come up with that, and action, spell out the details and steps you took applying the skill, and the result, that were your action, providing much measurable details as possible. So again, here you have to quantify, that we talked about earlier on as well on our series, that you have to actually quantify. It is going to give a positive impact to the recruiter. Let's move to our next question. So our next question is, what is your greatest weakness or strength? Here they actually are looking towards income in terms of your strengths. They were looking that either you are a perfect fit or you have their specific skills. When it comes to your weakness, they would be actually looking upon that, do you have a continuous improvement mindset, right? Once again, that's earlier on I talked about that you have to talk about a specific example of having an improvement strategy there. So they're looking up to that either you are of a fixed mindset or you have that specific growth mindset that we talked about earlier on in our course. So you have to show them that you examine your own strengths and weaknesses, like we talked about, that you should know 4 to 5 strengths, then you should actually have 3 to 4 weaknesses that you actually assess yourself on periodically. Then by describing a weakness, show by example the steps that you're taking to improve it using the power of word but. So what I have talked about here is the word but. That means that you're going to talk about that I already gave an example that I actually procrastinate a bit. I used to procrastinate a bit, but then after using that but, you can actually add that what strategy that you were using in order to improve that in the past, and how you would be improving that in future as well. So this is how you're going to show your growth mindset. The best response could be described a weakness that could also be viewed as a strength, that I already talked about, that you can actually give some examples that could be that are not directly influencing the specific job requirement that you're going to do, but it might be a bit other weakness that could be used as a strength as well for some people. So this is the fourth question. Let's move on to our last question, the fifth. So here is our fifth question. So it is that, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So here the reason behind this specific question is that the recruiters are actually trying to see that either you have think of or plan to work here in the long run, or you would be actually seeing yourself to working with us in a senior or leadership role. So this is the actual reason behind this question. The first thing is that you emphasize your commitment to your profession and the organization with confidence and clarity of thinking, and you have to be positive about showing willingness to handle more responsibility with increased leadership roles in that organization. And then you have to show your visualized personal performance goals are in perfect alignment with the organization's corporate objectives and promotional strategies. What do I mean by these? It is that in a few of the cases they're going to ask you about, okay, tell me about yourself. You'll be saying, I'll be seeing myself as the next HR manager. For example, if you're going for a HR job, right? It is not compulsory that you have to actually come up with something from your own mind, but first of all, for that you have to actually understand the corporate organization objectives and the promotion strategy that they have there in the specific organization, and then using that specific strategy or the corporate objective that the organization had, then you are going to align yourself practically in terms of that where you would be seeing yourself in the next 5 years. The first thing you have to do is not directly go to that specific post that is the person is sitting in front of you is having. For example, you say that I would be the next recruiter here, so that don't make that person feel insecure that you're here in with a mission to actually knock them off and take their position. But you have to be a bit practical, and then you would be actually telling them that what specific leadership role or strategy you are looking up to in future for working with that specific firm. So these were our basic 5 questions. So we have to, the one simple crux that we have taken out from all of these is that you have to do the prior research for the specific firm, and then this is going to actually help you understand and master answering any question they actually have in their mind. So as a whole, every question should be in line towards the job description and overall organization's objectives and culture.